arbitration process. These officers went to arbitration because they couldn't come to an agreement with the town board. When that happens, an independent arbitrator is appointed, and that independent arbitrator listens to both sides of the argument. The town side and the PBA side. Also, which was analyzed, was the town's finances. When that happens, the arbitrator determines that the town has an ability to pay these raises. So hence, the award gets given out, and in this case, the PBA won an award of, I believe, 4%, 3.5%. With that being said, both sides took a gamble. And from what I understand on the town side, the politicians feel that the community lost. But they didn't. The PBA might have gotten a fair award. That's what it comes down to. The arbitrator determined that that's a fair award. Still one of the lowest paid police departments in Orange County. That's not acceptable. That award should have been higher. I've heard words thrown out like free medical. It's not free medical. That medical was negotiated in the past. This PBA made concessions to get that medical. And from what I understand, you have to do 20 years in Cornwall to get that free medical? Is that true? I don't know.
Yes.
But 20 years as a police officer in order to do that. I know since I've lived in Cornwall, a lot of police officers have come and gone here. They've gone on to other departments that pay a higher salary. So I would have to guess that there aren't a lot of police officers that do the 20 and retired here and are getting that quote-unquote free medical. Well, board, I'm just asking you to reconsider your decision. I know it's possible to look for cuts in other ways. I know if you think it out, I'm sure you can find where there might be some other ways in the town of Cornwall. But the police department is already a lean police department. You have to rely on these full-time officers to do this. You can't rely on part-time police officers to do this. But part-time officers do a great job, and I'm not knocking them. However, like another gentleman said, they have full-time jobs, full-time obligations. When you have a hurricane, the full-time officers are going to be here because that's their job. The part-time officers might be at their other job. So I'm asking that you reconsider your decision, and please make sure these officers are reinstated. They dedicated 4 or 5 years of their lives to the town of Cornwall. They should be appreciated for that, not. It's killing morale for those guys. Thank you. One more thing. Post 9/11, this is not the direction we should be going. Cornwall's a safe community. Let's keep it safe.
New York. I just think that you should give these officers the respect and courtesy that they give you and your families. I know that they would give you respect if one of your daughters was pulled over, or they would call you first. And this is coming firsthand. I know, okay? That they give you respect and courtesy, you should give them respect and courtesy. And if it's in the budget for them for the rest of the year, you should give it to them.
Avenue, and a resident here on and off for more than 20 years. But I got to tell you, I'm here as much for myself as I am for you guys. As my experience in the city of Newburgh and Spring Valley has shown, it's a delicate balance. We have Mayberry here, but it's not free. And I have seen what it is when they take police away from Newburgh. When I started in Newburgh, we had a year and a half where we had no homicides. There were a ton of cops out there that were managing the money, there were grants, so everything was going great. Then they went right back to the 8 to 15 homicides that they had every year. Then I went down to Spring Valley, and Spring Valley was undermanned at that time too. And they hired some more officers, they allowed us to do our job, and we got the place under control. We have a homicide a year, baby, now. That's down from 8 to 15 since this year. Newburgh is only a few miles down the road, and I think that we got to keep the protection in place. I feel very comfortable going down to Spring Valley every day, 45 minutes away. leaving my family alone here. I've had instances in my past where some bad guys were going to come up to my house. Sergeant Russell will be able to clarify that with you. I felt comfortable. These guys were looking for retribution. I felt comfortable with the knowledge that I would be protected by the Cornwall police officers. So I urge you, please, do not leave these guys out. There's another way. Thank you.
Good evening. Kurt Hahn, 70 Andrew Street, Cornwall and Hudson, New York. First of all, I realize that the forefront of your concerns is our economic status here, the nation and our local community. I ask that you look more diligently at other areas you possibly can cut that would not compromise public safety. Our full-time officers are a constant face that community residents can actually go to. And community policing is something that's very important and vital to our local Cornwall area. Whereas in big cities, you don't necessarily have a face you can go to and trust and go with your concerns about the children of our community who are so impressionable and different problems in our community that we have, such as drugs, such as local crime, quality of life crime. I just ask that you look more closely at other areas that you possibly can go to that would not affect public safety. Thank you.
Right now, the state itself has stopped patrolling Cornwall. They have one patrol, they come out of Haverstraw, which is probably 30 minutes, 40 minutes away. When I heard that they're losing 2 more town officers, it made my concerns go up as far as safety for the town. All I can say is, please consider other areas and don't take the communities. I can see a rising in crime to do. Thank you.
Geoff from Cornwall, lived here for about 30 years. One of the things that I think is missed a little bit in this is we all talk about how crime is on the rise. And there certainly is crime in Cornwall. We do maybe a better job hiding it than some other towns do, but it definitely exists. But the other side of what these officers do every day is other sorts of emergencies. I have young children at home. If someone gets sick, there was a recent situation where there's a young infant on my street that has breathing trouble, stops breathing. Our ambulance corps does a phenomenal job. Our fire department does a phenomenal job. They're never going to respond as quickly as an officer in their car driving around the streets. At 3 in the morning, something happens to my kid, I want somebody there as fast as possible. I don't want to be told, well, the one officer's at work and is busy right now. We'll get somebody there as soon as we can. So it's just a whole other side of it to consider. We need these officers, like it's been said, we need more, not less.
Budget be revisited and reinvested to keep these 2 officers for several reasons. given the large area that the police officers patrol, if there were a motor vehicle accident on 32, another motor vehicle accident on 218, and then we have a domestic violence situation in Mountain Hill, we don't have anyone to cover this. The closest state police barracks for this is Haverstraw. Simply, it just can't be done. The budget must be revisited. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Geoff. I live in North Park. I've been in Cornwall about 25 years. And I only work at Cornwall Police Department, but I also work at New Windsor Police Department. And to tell you the disparity in the two departments is actually embarrassing. When someone says to me radio dispatch, I always say New Windsor first, and then mumble Cornwall. The people don't believe when they call on the phone and say, can I please talk to the detective? And I have to say to them, we don't have a detective. And they ask me, well, what is the detective going to be working? I'm like, you don't understand, it's not on now. We don't have it. So there's no one investigating, and I'm like, well, you'll have to talk to the chief on this. And then when they ask us, they talk to the sergeant. And I have to say, there is no sergeant now. Well, when is he going to be in? I said, well, we don't have a sergeant on this shift. We might have one tomorrow on this shift. And it's just, I'm afraid of the way our department is going, where we're taking more and more away, we're not going to have the quality officers applying to come to Cornwall. And just in my teaching career, I don't want to teach from the teacher that doesn't have the qualifications or the drive or the desire to work. I don't want officers in my town that are only here because they can't get a job someplace else, and this is the lowest paying in the county, so they come here as their last resort. We are nowhere near the other departments in this county, and it is rather embarrassing. I would love to have a detective that can work on the cases that they should be working on. I would love to have a sergeant when I answer the phone, and I can say to them, yes, of course we have a sergeant on duty. I can say that in New Windsor. Can't say that here in Cornwall. I would just like for you to consider where you're making the cuts so that we can continue to build our department as opposed to cutting it down little by little. Thank you.
Taylor Road, Mountainville. I've lived here 33 years now. I've worked for the Cornwall Police Department for 14. In my 14 years here, I've talked to some of the officers. We've gone through, just in my 14 years, 113 officers have come and gone through the doors of the town of Cornwall. Right now, we are pushing 2 of the most productive officers out of our department. Nick Sulo was responsible for almost 1/4 of the arrests made last year. He had 102 Shannon has also been highly enforceful with traffic and stuff like that. She's done an outstanding job. And she doesn't get enough credit for the things that she adds to the department. I think we're in the wrong direction here by getting rid of these 2 officers, and I think the board really needs to reconsider their choice.